opposite fence. That intricate, perfectly formed butterfly made me think. It was both utterly different to me and yet somehow familiar too. Like, to me, it was so obvious, alive. It could move, it could sense, it could respond. It seemed so full of purpose. I found myself wondering, what does it really mean to be alive? In short, what is life? I have been thinking about this question for much of my life, but finding a satisfactory answer is not easy. Perhaps surprisingly, there is no standard definition of life, although scientists have wrestled with this question across the ages. Even the title of this book, What is Life?, has been shamelessly stolen from a physicist, Erwin Schrödinger, who published an influential book of the same name in 1944. How living things maintained such impressive order and uniformity for generation after generation. In our universe that is, according to the second law of thermodynamics, constantly moving towards a state of chaos and disorder. Schrödinger quite rightly saw this as a big question, and he believed that understanding inheritance, that is what genes are, and how they are passed on faithfully between generations, was key. In this book, I ask the same question. What is life? But I do not think that only deciphering inheritance would give us a complete answer. Instead, I will consider 5 of biology's great ideas, using them as steps that we can climb one at a time to get a clearer view of how life works, and are generally well accepted for explaining how living organisms function. But I will draw these different ideas together in new ways and use them to develop a set of unifying principles that define life. Hopefully they will help you see the living world through fresh eyes. I should say right at the start that we biologists often shy away from talking about great ideas and grand theories. In this respect, we are rather different from physicists. We sometimes give the impression that we are more comfortably immersing ourselves in details, catalogs, and descriptions, whether that's listing all the species in a particular habitat, counting the hair on a beetle's leg, or sequencing thousands of genes. Perhaps it is nature's bewildering, even overwhelming diversity that makes it seem hard to seek out simple theories and unifying ideas. But important overarching ideas of this kind do exist in biology, and they help us make sense of life in its complexity. The 5 ideas I will explain to you are the cell, the gene, evolution by natural selection, life as chemistry, and life as information, as well as explaining where they came from, why they are important, and how they interact. I want to show you where am I? That they are still changing and being further developed today as scientists all over the world make new discoveries. I also want to give you a taste of what it's like to be engaged in scientific discovery. So I will introduce you to the scientists who make these advances, some of whom I knew personally. I will also tell stories of my own experiences of doing research in the laboratory. The lab including the hunches, but for the frustration, the luck, and the rare We live in a vast and awe-inspiring universe, but the life that thrives right here in our tiny corner of the greater whole is one of its most fascinating and mysterious parts. The 5 ideas in this book will act like steps that we will move up, progressively revealing principles that define life on Earth. This will also help us think about how life on our planet might have first got started, and what life might be like should we ever encounter it elsewhere in the universe. Whatever your starting point, even if you think that you know little or nothing about science, by the time you have finished this book, my goal is for you to have a better sense of how you, me, and that delicate yellow butterfly, and all our other living things on our planet are connected. It is my hope that together we will be closer to understanding what life is. What do you guys think? That's like the beginning start of the book. So I'm gonna read a little bit of the first chapter as well, which is called The Cell. There we go. Which is called The Cell. I'm gonna read a much, but we'll see how long we'll go today. Alright. I saw my first cell when I was at school, not long after my encounter with the yellow butterfly. My class had germinated onion seedlings and squashed their roots under a microscope slide to see what they were made from. My inspirational biology teacher, Keith Neal, explained that we would see cells, the basic unit of life, and there they were. I'm gonna have a little sip of water. Nice. Okay, let's keep going. And there they were, neat arrays of box-like cells, all stacked up in orderly columns. How impressive it seemed that the growth and division of those tiny cells were enough to push the roots of an onion down through the soil to provide the growing plant with water, nutrients, and anchorage. As I learned more about cells, my sense of wonder only grew. Cells come in an incredible variety of shapes and sizes. Most of them are too small to be seen with the naked eye. They are truly minute. Individual cells of a type of parasitic bacteria that can infect the bladder could line up 3,000 are breezed across a 1 millimeter gap. Other cells are immense. If you had an egg for breakfast, consider the fact that the whole of its yolk is just one single cell. Some cells in our bodies are also huge. There are, for example, individual nerve cells that reach from the base of your spine all the way to the tip of your big toe. That means those cells can be about a meter long. Startling as all this diversity is, what is most interesting for me is what all cells have in common. Scientists are always interested in identifying fundamental units, the best example being the atoms as the basic unit of matter. Biology's atom is the cell. Cells are not only the basic structural unit of all living organisms, they are also the basic functional unit of life. What I mean by this is that cells are the smallest entities that have the core characteristics of life. This is the basis of what biologists call cell theory. To the best of our knowledge, everything that is alive on the planet is either a cell or made from a collection of cells. The cell is the simplest thing that can be said definitely to be alive. Cell theory is about a century and a half old, and it has become one of biology's crucial foundations. Given the importance of this idea for understanding biology, I find it surprising that it has not caught the public imagination more than it has. This might be because most people are taught in school biology classes to think of cells as mere very similar to the cells in the onion root tips I saw as a schoolboy 300 years later. Hooke named these cells after the Latin word cella, meaning a small room or cubicle. At that time, Hooke did not know that the cells he had drawn were in fact not only the basic component of all plants, but of all of life. No longer after Hooke, the Dutch researcher Anton van Leeuwenhoek made another crucial observation. When he discovered single-celled life, he spotted these microscopic organisms swimming in samples of pond water and growing in the plague he scraped from his teeth, an observation that disturbed him since he was rather proud of his dental hygiene. He gave these tiny beings an endearing name that we no longer use today: animalcules. Those he found flourishing between his teeth were, in fact, the first bacteria ever described. Leeuwenhoek had stumbled across an entire new domain of minute single-celled life forms. We now know that bacteria and other sorts of microbial cells, or microbe, is a general term for all microscopic organisms that can live as single cells. Are by far the most numerous life forms on Earth. They inhabit every environment from the high atmosphere to the depths of the Earth's crust. Without them, life would come to a standstill. They break down waste, build soils, recycle nutrients, and capture from the air the nitrogen that plants and animals need to grow. And when scientists look at our own bodies, they see that for each and every one of our 33 trillion or more human cells, we have at least one microbial cell. You and every other human being are not an isolated individual entity, but a huge and constantly changing colony made up of human and non-human cells. These cells of microscopic bacteria and fungi live on us and in us, affecting how we digest food and fight illnesses. Okay, you guys, I think I will end it here. But I hope you guys liked it. I think it's super interesting. And I think this guy really explains everything in a way so that people who are not so much into science or hasn't studied science before can kind of grasp a little bit of all that interesting stuff. And I think it's such a cool book. And yeah, if you guys are interested, I really do recommend this book. It's called What is Life by Paul Nurse. But yeah, and if you guys liked it, I'm happy to read more of it and to read the other chapters too, because it is really such an insightful read. But yeah, I hope you guys like this video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next